Last year I picked up a Ricoh GR IIIx just before a trip to Japan. Since then, I've used this as my everyday carry camera. It's the camera I bring with me when I don't necessarily feel like bringing a camera with me, because I'm a firm believer in always being ready to capture images no matter where you are. This camera fits this purpose really well because it's so small and compact that you barely even notice that you're carrying it. And it's not like other compact cameras, this actually has an APS-C size sensor. There are actually two versions of this camera. I have the 3X, which is a fixed 40mm focal length, and there is the GR3, which is a fixed 28mm. For me, I just prefer the 40mm focal length. It gives me a more neutral look, and I do really love focusing in on details and taking pictures of people. And for this, 40mm works pretty great. On top of being a really great camera for everyday use, I do really like having this camera in my bag as a backup. Whether I'm just out shooting for fun or I'm on a professional job, having this Ricoh GR IIIx, given that it doesn't really take up any extra space in my bag, just having it there gives me a little bit of peace of mind. And the GR IIIx is actually a really great travel camera because you don't necessarily have to bring a bag with you when you go out taking pictures. I've set up a custom button in the GR IIIx to switch between the crop modes. So you have a digital crop of 1.4 times and 2 times in the camera, and that just helps me to be able to just zoom in when I need a little bit of extra reach. It's going to be a digital zoom, so it's no different from cropping in post, but it is good to be able to frame your shots without obviously having to bring a bigger camera with a larger zoom lens. And resolution wise, it doesn't have as many pixels as some of the other cameras out there. I think this one is around 24, 26 megapixels, somewhere around that mark. I'll put the exact number on the screen here. But that actually is enough, even at 2 times crop, to get enough resolution. I've also experimented with using this as my main digital camera, bringing it along to a few recent portrait shoots where I shot a mixture of film and digital. It was honestly pretty fun to shoot with, and while it's not the most professional looking camera, it produces really great images. And when I've shown those images to the talent, they've been really impressed with the results. I'd love to know what you guys think of using a Ricoh GR to take these kinds of pictures, because it's something that you don't really see a lot of other people doing. The GR IIIx also gives you the option to shoot JPEG in these film-inspired picture profiles and customize them to your own liking. The only downside I've found to this is that you can't actually add grain settings or grain effects to color images, only black and white images. That's something that's different with the Fuji film simulations. With those, you can actually add grain to any photo. And this is really not something that's super important to me. I do like to edit all of my own photos using a color profile in Lightroom that I created myself. So in my first impressions video, I did mention that there was a little bit of a problem with the autofocus in this camera. And what I found since then is that was actually user error. I had this setting turned on in the camera called snap focus. So what this means is that when you completely hold down the shutter button, it's going to snap to a predetermined focus distance. For me, the snap focus was set to somewhere around 2 meters from the lens, which obviously did result in some out of focus images for me, because I would pick up the camera, switch it on, and then immediately try to take a picture holding that shutter button down all the way, and the photo would be out of focus. So since then, I've turned snap focus off in the camera, and my focus accuracy has increased greatly. But I still do want to touch on autofocus really quickly and just mention that it is nowhere near as fast or as accurate as some of my other cameras, like my Canon R6 or my Fujifilm X-T5. Now, given this is a slightly older camera than those models, but honestly, for the size, the weight, the form factor, everything that this camera is about, I actually think that the autofocus is just fine. And as long as you understand the limitations and you're patient with it, you can get really great results. You can shoot in full manual with this camera, but for me it's been more of an aperture priority camera just because of the slightly limited controls. Yes, you can obviously control all of the 3 exposure triangle settings, and I just have the dial at the top of the camera set up to adjust my exposure compensation. So I would just flick this dial on the back to the left or to the right depending on whether I want to brighten or darken my exposure. So while I do really love this camera and really enjoyed shooting with it, there are a few drawbacks to keep in mind before you pick one up. Now, you're not going to be shooting video with this camera, unfortunately. So if you're after a hybrid camera, something that will shoot really nice photos and really nice video as well, you're gonna have to remove this one from your list. The video is limited to 1080p and it is completely full of moire and it's quite soft. It just doesn't look very detailed or sharp at all. Plus the image stabilization in the video doesn't work that great either. So yeah, if you're looking for a hybrid camera, unfortunately, this would be a hard skip. If you do pick up a Ricoh GR, I would highly recommend buying an extra battery for this camera just because the battery life isn't all too great unless you have a way of charging the camera on the go, which is what I do. I just have a small battery bank that I take with me if I'm going to be out for an entire day. You can definitely save a lot of battery by just turning the camera off when you're not using it. But for me, myself, when I find a really nice scene or the light is just really good, I get a little bit too snap happy and I end up blasting through an entire battery within a couple of hours. The replacement batteries are pretty expensive what they are. If you look at the size of this cell, it's really not very big at all. They're quite expensive, but I guess the silver lining to that is that you can carry a couple of these around without really noticing. They're probably, like, I would say comparable to like a CF card, if you guys remember a CF card. So I would highly recommend that unless you have a way of charging this while you're out and about, definitely get a replacement battery. So this last point is an issue that I'm actually facing myself right now, and that is sensor dust. The Ricoh GR3 and GR IIIx do not have the best weather sealing, and when you turn the camera on and off like this, the lens extends and retracts and it tends to suck some dust up into the internals of the camera. Now there is a workaround to this. So if you take this plastic ring off on the front, you can see I've got this sort of like gray one that I bought because I actually lost the original black that came on the camera. If you take this off, you can put this protective hood over the lens and that actually stops any dust from getting in. But obviously it is a fixed piece of plastic. It's going to stay there and it's going to extend the camera's size, which for me kind of defeats the purpose of having a pocketable camera if it's not so pocketable. So in some recent photos that I took at f11 and f16, you can see the dust on the sensor. I think there's 1 or 2 spots on there. So for having this camera for a year and using it as much as I have, you can definitely see the signs of use on the camera body itself. It's not too bad, and where I live is actually quite dusty as well. So unlike an interchangeable lens camera where you can just take the lens off, use a duster or a sensor swab to clean the sensor, in order to clean the sensor of the Ricoh GR IIIx and GR3 for that matter, you have to open the camera body itself. And you can, if you like, definitely send this camera off to have the sensor cleaned. They'll open it up, they'll clean it and put it all back together for you. But I've heard that it does take a couple of weeks for that process. There are some do-it-yourself instructionals out there, but that involves, you know, opening the camera and you never really know what can happen there. So I'll probably be leaving it to the professionals. Really the only way to remedy this issue for me, for now, is to shoot wide open because the dust really only shows up at those closed down apertures. So in summary, after a year of owning the Ricoh GR IIIx, I gotta say I still really love this little camera and I've captured some images with it that I am really happy with, and I'm going to continue using it until the Ricoh GR4 is released, which at the time of recording this video, it has been announced, but it hasn't hit the stores yet. Let me know what you guys thought of the images down in the comment section below, and let me know if you are considering this camera and why. And if you do like the way I edit my photos, I actually sell my Lightroom profile, which you can check out down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I'll see you in the next one.